Uh, what projects did we analyze? We tried to analyze the projects which we thought have the grant support schemes which are relevant for high nature value farming. They supported the farmers and they implemented and tested such scheme in within the project. So you see here that some of the projects were implemented by the Bulgarian Society for Protection of Birds, by WWF, by Bio Selena Foundation, Bulgarian Foundation for Biodiversity Conservation. So all of these projects which are listed here and are implemented in the period 2007-2020, we have reviewed them. We have seen what were the objectives of the projects, but more importantly, what were the objectives of the grant schemes and what were their results and how their results were incorporated in the national strategic policy documents. So what I want to say here in the beginning is that, and I will explain later why, is that all of these projects, they had in their, how to say, projects fish that as achievement for the results, they have an indicator that the schemes should be mainstreamed in the national policy supporting documents. And here in this program, for this period, we are speaking mainly about the rural development program. So what really was achieved there was that some of the most innovative measures which were developed and tested within this project. So we had Natura 2000 measure, which was developed by a project and tested by a project, and then later on in 2011, it was incorporated in the Rural Development Program. We have some schemes for transformation of arable land into extensive grassland and reseeding of grasslands with local grass species, which were also tested there. One of them, the first one for transformation, was incorporated in the Rural Development Program. The other one was not. And what is even worse is that it is not even proposed in the new strategic plan for restoration of eroded or damaged grasslands. Then we come to the non-productive investment measure. It is in the Rural Development Program since 2014. I don't think, however, it is implemented. Although a lot of electric fences are bought and used already by the farmers. And hopefully, as Janka said, we don't have the breakdown under which investment measure this was done. So I cannot really tell what was the uptake of this measure. We have two payment for ecosystem services developed by a project which was implemented by WWF. However, none of them was integrated in the strategic document, and we can consider, as you will see later in our conclusion, that this is still innovative approach and an innovative model for Bulgaria. Then we have the schemes which are for high nature value arable lands, and one is the scheme for the wintering geese and the red-breasted geese, which was developed, tested, and then in 2013 for the first time included in the Rural Development Program. and for which Janka explained what the real uptake was. But these both schemes, the importance thing to say here is that actually, when they were transposed into the national strategic documents in the RDP agri-environmental measure, they are significantly crippled, as we say. So they were not all the requirements which were developed and tested were then incorporated in the rural development program. First of all, the scope and the geographical scope of the measure was enlarged to include the whole territories of the settlements, and not only the layer which was presented by the Bulgarian Society for Protection of Birds. And even the wind turbines were not excluded from parcels. The parcels with the wind turbines were not excluded from the support in these areas. And the second big thing, which was actually influencing the whole process, is that they didn't put any maximum level of support or any maximum level of coverage of geographical coverage, hectares that need to be supported. So this actually created the uptake was very high, but it was considered like absorption of funds and not actually doing something good for the red-breasted geese. The other, maybe you need some more explanation about this, but this mainly concerns the wintering fields, the big cereal production in Dobruja, where these geese are grazing when they come in Bulgaria during the winter and the springtime. So actually, this the big cereal producers benefited from this measure without changing too much of their practice. So this created the negative impression of the measure. Then investment measure, of course, you will see what are our conclusions about them. So in terms of figures, with direct support to the farmers by this project, you see that these are not that many farmers. Around 105 farmers or pro-biodiversity businesses as a whole, and around 2,000 hectares, which were supported directly supported in this project. But the indirect effect we consider to be much greater, because a lot of manuals, guidelines, recommendations, and training materials were done. Some mobile advisory centers were set that worked with farmers and that gained the confidence of farmers. And they explained to the farmers the biodiversity goals of the schemes, why they should do this, what they should do. And they also acted as their, how to say, advocates, maybe to the lawyers in front of the paying agency. So farmers really appreciated them very much. The other thing, which was, as I said, there were a lot of targeted training of farmers, also for adding value and diversification of their products. And one thing which we consider very useful was that they basically supported farmers in participation in farmers markets, festivals, national and international exhibition. And when I say farmers, these were HNV farmers, and they somehow increased the self-esteem of these farmers. So we find this also very important for the farmers and for what the project did. So now I will briefly go up into the lessons learned, which we will draw when reviewing these projects. And I have divided them into 4 main categories. The first one is about the developing of the schemes, then implementation of schemes, then what type of measures are preferred by farmers, and what actually support do they need. So what we didn't look at and what we didn't present here are the recommendations regarding the actual management requirements in the different projects, because there are a lot of recommendations on how the grassland should be measured, should be managed, what should be done by the farmers, when it should be done, what not to be done, what not should not be done. But all these things are typical for the areas which the project work in. So ones are for Western Staraplanina, the others are for Plovdiv region, for Sakar, or for Dobruja. So this depends on the region where this project was implemented. So we didn't draw any general conclusions from these management requirements, although you can probably find them in our overall materials when we publish them. So going back to development of the HNV schemes and measure. So the first thing which we find very useful is that it is very important to have the target cooperation between the environmental NGOs and the national authorities. So when the national authorities were involved into the development of the project scheme and follow up the implementation, then the scheme was successfully incorporated into the national policy documents and was then implemented on the national level. The other thing which, as I started to say, is that the schemes are basically very successful when they are designed and take into account the specific regional characteristic and socioeconomic conditions of the region where they are implemented. So they should not be implemented on and developed on national level. They should be implemented and designed according to the specific characteristic of the region. And when we say this, that is why we are asking for the, for example, regional definition for permanent pastures to be introduced in Bulgaria, and not a national one which covers all the grasslands in Bulgaria. The other thing which was also very came out very clearly is that face-to-face consultation with the applicant and clear explanation of the biodiversity conservation goals are very important for successful implementation of the schemes. So this should also be used by the policymakers on the national level. The negative thing, I already tried to explain it, when they are transformed in a crippled way, they are creating a negative attitude and impression in the society as a whole. So it's better not to transform them in that way, to transpose them in that way. So this is not something new, but it also clearly pops up from our analysis, is that a wide range of stakeholder consultation is needed. Farmers need to be included when the scheme is developed, because actually they are the ones who are going to implement the scheme. And if they cannot do this, and if they cannot understand the scheme, they are not going to implement it. And more specifically, even if they implement it but don't know what are the conservation goals of this scheme, they will implement it and only take the funds and not know what the results of these schemes are and why it is proposed as such. Next one is also something which is not new. When there is overcompensation for not changing too much the conventional farming practice, the scheme becomes very, how to say, successful in absorption of funds, but and very interesting for the farmers. And this was the case with the GIS scheme, where actually the requirements didn't request too much changing of the conventional farming practices. And in the compensations, the calculation of the compensations, we have noticed that they have also put some additional costs, and there were actually no additional costs for this scheme. There were only income foregone. So it is basically a lot of overcompensated this scheme. I also said that maximum size and maximum ceiling of payment per beneficiary are important for inclusion of different types of stakeholders in the scheme. So this is a way to include small, medium, and large farmers, and not spend the whole budget only on, let's say, large farmers. And the small one, which have more difficult access to advices and to information, to not be able to participate in the scheme. For the implementation of the schemes, we have noticed a lot of things which differ when the scheme is implemented by the environmental NGOs and the ones which develop the grant scheme, and when the approach on national level. So the first thing which we saw is that if there is a possibility to adapt the scheme after its initial launching and to change the things which are not working or which are even wrong, then the scheme will be more successful. Then it was very simple, transparent, and efficient process of implementing the donor-supported scheme, in contrast to the national rural development programs. So Janka presented that there is no even information who is supported for what type of scheme and for what type of land use is supported, and when this support and how it is happening. And also the delivery period. Usually the delivery period of the grant scheme is immediately, while at the best, the rural development program is 1 year. Usually in the first year, it took more than 2 or 3 years, even in the beginning of 2008. So it was a long wait to receive something to receive the funds for something which you have already done. Also, this is an approach which already is used by our RDPs, but it's also very interesting for the farmer. And of course, we have to judge this approach toward the expected results of the scheme. But when there is a possibility, it is better to consider this possibility to apply the scheme not on one and the same geographical area, but the same area and the same size, but on the other geographical location by the farmer. This is also something which is preferred by the farmers. So what next, as I said, is what type of measures do farmers prefer? Clearly, the investment support is very attractive for the farmers, both for non-productive investments and for investment support of the activities. They prefer to have some type of investment support for the agri-environmental activities which they are going to implement, which actually shows that we should try to look for more integrated type of support for these farmers. Also, they find it very affordable to them and easy for them the possibility to buy second-hand equipment, which also helps them to use more efficiently the funds which are provided to them. For the PES schemes, as I say, this is still an innovative economic instrument for Bulgaria. And what we can say there is that it can only happen on national level if the legal base is changed, because it is still not changed and not in favor of such kind of payments for ecosystem services. And if how to say, the schemes where the ownership of the schemes is took by the national authorities, which is not the case currently. So I don't believe that such schemes are going to be implemented in Bulgaria very soon. Yeah, farmers need regular consultation regarding the biodiversity issues and the activities that they need to undertake. And as Janka say, why do they need to take them? What will be the benefits for the environment? They lack this kind of information, and as you will see from the results which Janka will present later. Also, what we find is that they really appreciate very much the support and participation in local food events, open days, fairs, and this gives them the possibility to add products to their, to add value to their products on one side, but it also increases the consumers' appreciation of farmers as providers of producers of clean food and quality food products, but also as providers of public good, and that preserves the traditional landscapes, the biodiversity, etc. So we think that there should be a special support or component for such activities in the national public schemes. And finally, these are our main recommendations, which come from the conclusions which I have presented before. So we recommend that the eligibility conditions for high nature value farmland should be developed at regional or at local level, and not at national level as a whole. This could be done at least by dividing these definitions into areas in Natura 2000 or outside of Natura 2000, into mountain areas or flat areas and plain areas, if not at the municipal level. It is difficult to do this at the municipal level, but at least we should do some kind of regionalization for the national definitions. Also, we recommend that the flexible approach should be introduced and considered, and the measures should be adapted after their initial implementation. Also, something very important which we recommend is the involvement of environmental NGOs in the process of formulating and implementing the policies and measures for biodiversity conservation, and also their involvement in the monitoring of the impact of the implemented measures. We will keep, how to say, recommending this, because what happens in Bulgaria, at least on the national level, is that there is less and less involvement, not only of the environmental NGOs, but also of the different stakeholders in the thematic working groups. The one Janka explained already, that the big ones are represented there, the more influential and lobbying one, but it is very difficult, for example, for let's say a new association, could be from young farmers, could be from let's say some kind of innovative farming activities, to become part of the working groups which are working in national level. And this is also true when projects are developed. It becomes more and more difficult to involve the public authorities in a project. Even if the project is approved, they are considering participation in the project as they are doing you a favor, and not as something which they can learn from. So it becomes very important somehow to involve them and to make them support the NGOs when testing such innovative ways for biodiversity conservation and developing measures for high nature value farming support. We also think that the possibility of delegation of the implementation of some of the measures and Natura 2000 management plan should also be explored by the national authorities. There is a possibility to delegate such measure. We have already the experience that when environmental NGOs are involved in the implementation of measures, successes are there and results are there. So it will be very good to, if the national authorities try at least to delegate at some regions the implementation of some of the measure. So these are my final words. Thank you for your attention. And now let's look at the questions. I said it's not very interesting presentation, but yeah, we at least try to summarize the
I disagree. I disagree. I thought it was an absolutely fascinating presentation, which delivers all sorts of learnings and insights that we should, we should pay great attention to, because many of us here are involved in the development of projects and looking for project opportunities. And these are really absolutely brilliant learnings. I liked especially the perspective that you took from, from the farmers. I mean, what do farmers appreciate? I like the perspective that you took upon, the real opportunities for the integration of project outputs into the RDP, into the policy framework. But my question to you also is, what are the type of projects which are valuable to you as an NGO? What are the type of projects that really help you to build your capacity in order to sustain the efforts that you're making? And I referred, for example, to the HNV Link thematic network that was connecting you with other actors across Europe. Previously, you've been very, very active in other European networks. What are the projects that you need in order to continue to be effective and more effective?
So I will take it at the beginning and probably Janka will add after that. I think that we need both type of projects, and we need projects like thematic working groups, like HNV Link, like other Horizon projects, which actually are helping us to improve our skills and understanding and making some analysis and research and see what are the other countries doing. But we also need projects in which we are working directly with the farmers. And I think that one thing which makes these projects very successful is this component of a grant scheme, because farmers are taught what are the biodiversity goals of the scheme, why they should do this, but they are also supported to do it, and they are supported in a friendly way. So they see the practical how to say, the practical usefulness of this project. And we have such question. Janka will present it in our survey. What do they find more, the farmers themselves? What do they find very interesting in such projects? And for us, if we want to prove what we are trying to advocate for on local, on national level, we need to work with farmers. And to build confidence in farmers, we have to try to involve them somehow. They find the peer reviews, the cross visits between different countries in the thematic working group very useful. Actually, this is something which helped us very much to gain their confidence as organization with them. Not even the seminars help that much, you know. The seminars helps for researcher, for other types of stakeholders, farmers. They often don't have the time to participate in these seminars. So I think both types of projects are really, really very useful. And maybe Janka, if she...
I actually prefer to go to the next presentation, knowing how much I talk usually in presentations, and then we can have a discussion, which will be very useful. But let's have the full picture and then we go to that, if you agree.
Okay, I do.